Welcome to Business Talk, presented in collaboration with the University of Rio Grande and the Ohio State University South Centers, from the heart of southeastern Ohio at the University of Rio Grande TV studio. Our goals are simple: promote the University of Rio Grande and the Ohio State University South Centers, as well as advocate local small business and their support organizations. More importantly, promote Southeastern Ohio as a wonderful place to live, explore, and learn. There are many different ways you can find us. The University of Rio Grande Cable Access Channel 17, live online at blogtalkradio.com, and on YouTube if you are unable to catch our show live. Introducing our co-hosts, Jason Winters, Mike Thompson, Patrick Dengel. Thank you for tuning in. We hope you enjoy the show.
Today it's my pleasure to introduce Callum Morris, head women's soccer coach and admissions representative and international recruiter with the University of Rio Grande. Welcome, Callum.
Thank you.
Did you say International Man of Mystery?
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
That's a whole other show. Well, you know, Peter, I'd like to first welcome Mike back. Mike was away. He was visiting our great nation's capital last week, so he wasn't with us. And I'd like to apologize to all of our listeners last week. You know, I understand since Mike was not here, a lot of our television listeners in the Jackson area did not have the volume that they needed to listen to our program.
Oh, it's a shame.
Yeah, we had a program last week, and we talked about internship opportunities coming up this summer. We also talked about the new MBA program scheduling. We also talked about the hospitality management program. So we promise our listeners that we will come back at another time and we'll revisit those issues again. And
but if you want to,
technical difficulties.
It will be on YouTube later. So search YouTube for Blog Talk and the show that you're looking for, and it should be up there. It's not up there right now, but in a week or two it will be.
Okay.
So they're all archived. I checked the audio on those, and it's fine.
Excellent. So it was just our television audience that was affected.
Right.
This week we're missing Patrick Dengel. Patrick took the spring holiday this week. Him and his wife are both off, and I guess that they are taking care of one another and enjoying the time off. And I'm certainly glad that the rain went away and they get to enjoy some sunshine. So, Pat, if you're listening, and I'm sure you are, have a nice break.
Did they go out of state?
A couple more days.
No, I don't
I think they were staying home. I think that was the plan. They
Yeah.
were just going to stay home and relax and kind of veg out for a week.
Okay,
We did hear
that's
you
good
had
too.
some nice photos of DC on Facebook, though, Mike.
Yeah.
Yeah. The business trip went well.
So, Mike, real quick, what were you doing in D.C.?
It was a national beer brewing conference.
Okay, so let's plug the local business that you were supporting. Who did you go there with?
I was there with Tim Mary with Mary Family Winery and the Old Mill Brewing.
Yep.
And picking up some tips. He's just got into brewing beer this past October. So I think he's got 4 on tap now, and you can get them by bottle or growler, which is a larger bottle that gets refilled.
Okay, but he doesn't have it on tap.
He does have it on tap.
Oh, does he have
you
tap
can buy
on
it by
that?
the glass.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
I'll have to,
good stuff.
Have to make it.
So he was looking at things and moving up and expanding, and options of bottles, and they've got everything there. That all the providers of things.
We stopped out for dinner, and that's been about a month and a half ago, and he had just started serving. He just got his license to serve, and he said, "Do you want to try it? It's one of my first." I said, "Sure, we'll try it." And it was very good. Very good. It's nice to have that attraction here in the county. So let's get back to our
about
local
beer.
attraction.
Internationals.
Tell us about where you come from and what some of your history is.
I'm from England, from a small coastal town called Redcar, which is in the northeast of England. I came over to the States when I was 17, just a tender age, back in England.
Just a wee lad.
Just a wee lad, yeah. When you finish high school in England around 15, 16, obviously it's a bit different in the States when you're normally 18, 19. So I went and did a year at college in England, and then had the opportunity of coming to this fine village and this fine country that we call the United States.
So the town you come from over there is larger than Rio Grande or Gallipolis?
Yes, it's a steel industry town. My dad works on the port as a rigger.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's a larger town. A lot of industry goes on there. So yeah. Definitely bigger than Rio.
So how did you get over here?
I was on an exit trial. I was at Middlesbrough College at the time, and Scott and Tony were over watching a game that they were recruiting another player from.
So they were over in England?
In England, yeah.
Okay.
And they were recruiting Paul Nicholson, a Rio legend, who is now playing professionally down in Wilmington. And they were recruiting him. They were meant to be watching him, and we were playing in the FA Colleges Cup, and he wasn't of age. You have to be under 18 to play in that, and he just turned, I believe that was what the circumstances were. They were there watching the game and approached me afterwards and told me what opportunities I had available to me. So I came over and visited in May of 2005 and took the offer, and I was here in August. So
once you saw Rio Grande, your heart was gone.
Well, it was
Fell in love.
Yeah, fell in love with the place. It was very different from my surroundings in England. And
a little bit of culture shock.
Not necessarily culture shock, because as Peter's from the area as well, he knows that living in the industry town, you can drive 5 minutes away and be in the countryside.
Mm-hmm.
So seeing the hills of Rio and obviously South Gallia and all that area, it wasn't really a shock. But like I said, coming to the type of team that I came to, we were nationally ranked and had a good opportunity of doing things here, so that was one of the huge pulls. And also getting a degree. I never thought when I finished high school I'd be coming to the States at all, never mind to play soccer or have a chance of gaining a degree. So
what kind of degree did you go for first?
To be honest, I had my heart set on sports, so I ended up going with sport exercise science. Did that as a 4-year degree. Graduated with a 2.7 GPA. Whoop whoop. Wish I'd put a bit more work into the GPA side of things, but as you get older you learn, and I changed that around when I stayed on and did my Masters in Education with a specialisation in sports leadership and coaching, and finished with a 4.0 in that one, so whoop whoop. So,
okay.
So yeah, that's how that kind of rolled. So I finished my 4-year degree here, and had the opportunity of staying on and becoming the women's soccer graduate assistant. I was actually in Jason's first class doing entrepreneurship. Actually started off as a business major to do the MBA program, and once the opportunity came to change over and do the sports coaching, as that's what I wanted to try and get myself into. Jumped ship. Wasn't Jason's bad teaching. Class was actually quite enjoyable.
I was going to ask if Jason had kicked you out.
No. Probably a few times that he caught us probably texting or something, but no, we moved over, and like I said, we did the 2 years and had the opportunity of being part of a brand new program. When I started here in 2005, the women's soccer team had just started as a collegiate program, so it's relatively new, to be honest. And then once my 2 years up, the head coach at the time left the position, and the school took a few months of negotiating and who we were going to appoint next, and thankfully they chose me, and I've been in the role now since 2011 and loved every minute of it. Been some highs and lows, definitely, but we're moving in the right direction, and we've had some strong performances and we've had some weak ones, but we're moving in the right direction.
Now you also have some other responsibilities here at the university too, right? You're not just the women's soccer coach.
For my first 2 years, up until July of 2012 last year, my position was just the women's soccer, and then obviously with being from England, the visa situation comes into play, and I applied for another position at Rio for an admissions representative. Fortunately enough, was given that position, and now I do both as a dual job. Which also, with me having the background in the international scene and what it takes to get visas and taxes and all that good stuff that we have to go through as international students, I was also put in charge of the international recruitment as well. With Rio, especially with the soccer having a huge influx of different nationalities from around the world, they needed somebody that had a bit of experience in that, and I was given that position as well. So many different hats and many different positions.
So when you're admissions representative, what exactly does that entail?
It's basically going out and recruiting. My recruiting area is in Cincinnati and Dayton. I've also got Kentucky and a part of Indiana that I do travel to and openly recruit. With Rio being an open enrollment school, it is a really unique thing that Rio has, obviously with the president being on a few weeks ago talking about we're the only school that's a 4-year private school but a 2-year community college. And when I go and speak to these students and tell them about the tuition prices, especially in the first 2 years, it's a huge pull for us. So I go to inner city Cincinnati schools, and then go to obviously broaden myself out and take myself away from those areas and go to private schools. So literally I take the Cincinnati and Dayton areas. That's where my large recruiting pool comes from, and I know the school are trying to push for us to bring out of state students in, but obviously we need to maintain those bread and butter kids that we bring in regularly from certain high schools, and then hopefully we can get out there and venture more.
So you're not looking for sports players?
No,
you're looking for general
That's
students.
a whole different kettle of fish right there. So I recruit for the school and then recruit for soccer as well. So especially in the fall period when we do the recruiting for the school, and we have obviously soccer going on with our schedule, and we've got conference games and trying to recruit at the same time. The fall is a very busy schedule for myself, my staff, and obviously the admission staff as well. So we try to get all over the place. I know myself, where I've just mentioned where I go. Mo Jones, he recruits Northern Ohio and out of state, so he literally goes from above Columbus and everywhere above there. Christy recruits up to Columbus area. Jay takes West Virginia, and then Courtney takes the 4 counties. So we try to get out there as much as possible, because if we aren't out there recruiting, these kids aren't coming in. So obviously that's a big thing for us to do, and when the kids are in school in the fall, that's when we try to get out there and try to push across Rio and its benefits, and obviously the pros to come into a small private school rather than a big private school, and obviously the cost helps. And so that's what I do from an admission standpoint, and obviously having the accent, it does work at times speaking to parents and individuals. I don't know if it works getting them to the school, but at least they're coming to talk to us, and it gives us some exposure. And when I go back the following year, they're like, there's that English guy again. So hopefully it knocks on, and we're able to bring in students for that.
How do you find mixing that role with head coaching for the women's team?
It can be very hectic. Obviously, Peter being part of my staff on the coaching side of things, it's very hectic, and making sure that we're very organised, and making sure that obviously the players know what's going on, and training schedules and game times, and making sure that we can try and obviously put both together. And last year it worked really well. I was very surprised how fluent everything was, with both admissions and soccer, and hopefully this year, with us having 12 home games next season, it'll be less hectic than normal, but it works well. I've got a good staff on both sides, and if people need covering, they're there to help, and I definitely have a lot of faith and responsibility in my staff on the soccer side, and like I said, from the admission side, they understand both roles, so it works quite well.
How old is the women's soccer program?
The women's soccer program started in 2005, so 8 years. This will be its 9th season, and I've been in charge for the past, since 2011. So this will be my third year as head coach, but my 5th year has actually been part of the program.
How's it changed over those years?
Myself and graduate Chris Scarrett came as GAs in 2009 when we first started our master's degrees, and up until that point, I think we maybe won 2 games in a season. In my first year, we went through that season and didn't win a single game. It was a huge shock for myself and Chris, going from obviously the men's program where we hardly lost a game to a team where we lost every game we played in. So myself and Chris made a lot of sacrifice in the time that we were here. We recruited a lot. I think the next year that we did, we brought in 12 freshmen. And the following year we had a 7, 8 and 1 season.
In the early days, was it just like open it up to people on campus, like who wants to play?
Exactly, that's how it was. And the previous coach, she had a position in West Virginia as a teacher, so her time was restricted to practices and things like that. And with the program just getting new, there was a lot of flaws and a lot of things that needed to be changed. And obviously with myself and Chris's background, we were able to put some stability in there, some groundwork, and that's what we did. And especially with the freshmen that we brought in, it gave us that base to work on. And like I said, with the second season that we were here, my second and Chris's second year of our master's degrees, things went really well. We made some huge strides then, and with doing those strides, it got the publicity out there that the Rio has a women's soccer team. Obviously everybody knows how well the men do, and we're trying to get to that standard. We know it'll take a few years to get there, many years, Scott started his program in 97, 96, and it took him 8 years until he won a conference tournament. So we know it's going to take time, but we're willing to put that effort in, and like I said, bringing the players in and the correct players to move our team forward, and hopefully within the next few years we'll be able to do that.
So what was our record this year?
6, 8 and 1. We started off like house on fire, to be honest. We had some really strong performances at the start of the year, and then we had 3 injuries to 3 key players, and kind of fell off the tracks a little bit. And towards the end of the season, trying to find that confidence again that got us started at the start of the season. But we played well at the start, like I mentioned. The middle part was very, very rocky, and then towards the end we started to pick things up again. I think we won our last 3 games, but unfortunately they weren't conference games, which obviously killed us a little bit with conference play, and we ended up going to Lindsay Wilson for the first round of conference. Pleased that we made it, because we have 10 teams in the conference now, and only the top 8 make the conference playoffs, and we made it, so that's a good thing for us, being in obviously the conference playoffs. But we had to travel to Lindsay, who went on to win the national championship. So it was going to be very tough for us to go there, but we went there and put in a very valiant performance. We played very well and scared them at times. Got a penalty, should have scored, we missed it. The refereeing was very dubious at times. Don't want to blame the refs, but for both teams it was very, very dubious.
I think we could for a few calls.
Well, he goes down one end, gives a penalty to Lindsay that wasn't a penalty. He realises after he's spoken to his linesman, and then goes down the other end and give us a penalty when it wasn't a penalty.
Less than a minute later.
So it was,
well, if the sliding is on both sides, then it's
fair.
But they scored theirs. We missed ours.
yeah.
So, but like I said, we had a decent start. It could have been a lot better. But that's the thing with our recruiting. We have to make sure that we recruit and we bring in players and we have depth.
Is that hard to do, recruiting for a women's soccer team now? I know soccer is getting more popular
yes,
here.
It's getting more popular, and from our side point, when we tried to recruit, Cincinnati's got a great foundation for women's soccer. It's renowned, and obviously with me recruiting there for admissions as well, it works perfect.
Mm-hmm.
So I can kind of do 2 things at once when I do that. So we've got 6 girls that are coming in that we've assigned for next season. 4 of them are from the Cincinnati area. We've got 5 in the team currently that are from that area as well. And then we've got a few girls that are locally, then we've got girls that are from Columbus. I think this is our first year that we're going to have international students on the team as well. And we've got a girl coming from Scotland that'll be a transfer student from AUM that we're really looking forward to having her in and give us that international feel. A girl from Mexico that we're hoping to make sure that the NAIA pass her to be eligible. And then a few others that we can't really talk about at the moment, just because we don't know if they're going to be eligible to play.
Right.
So we're waiting to hear, obviously, off the NAIA if they can even participate.
So, having been on a men's team,
Mm-hmm.
how much of a culture shock is it to go to a women's team? Do you have to coach them differently? I don't.
Not
It may
necessarily.
be uncomfortable because we have a soccer player behind the
I
camera.
would say it was. There's 2 different sides to men's and women's. With men's soccer, if there's arguments, they get the argument out of the way and that it's done with. With men's soccer, you have egos, and it's hard to coach the egos at times. With women's soccer, they want to learn, they want to improve, and they want to get better, which is a good thing coming from our standpoint, because we need to learn and we need to become better. I'm only 25. When I took the position, I was 23, probably one of the youngest coaches in the United States at the time to have a college program. So I'm learning every day, after every practice, after every game, and how I have to approach things. So every time I go out there, it's a learning curve for me, and trying to obviously invest that into the players and the game plan that we're trying to put across. Don't get me wrong, we've had our moments with players and things like that, and like I said, it's learning for us. In my first 2 years,
I imagine you can't just go up to and blow up like you can.
Exactly, you have to be very, very cautious in how you approach things. And anybody that's been part of a girls' program or played with a girls' team, they know that when there's that nitty-gritty stuff that we don't want, girls pick sides. And it's trying to obviously brush that stuff out as quick as possible so we can get on with the job in hand. So it's quite important that obviously we.
Yeah. They're both capable. It's just a different way of motivation.
Exactly. Yeah. Definitely. And motivation and confidence, especially in girls' play, is very, very. It's important in the guys as well, but definitely girls. Being girls, if they're playing well, they do well. If they're not playing well, they kind of go in themselves.
They just get crushed.
Yep, and it's trying to obviously get that out of them, and hopefully them being college athletes and being adults, because that's how we want to treat them. To see that responsibility and have to perform when we want them to. So.
We've talked about this before on the show, and we realize that soccer in England is very popular. Is it the same way for the men's as well as the women's in England? Is it as popular as the men's sport?
No, men's in England is far superior to women's soccer in England. It's like over here with how well the women's US national team have done. The women's program, the women's soccer in the United States, back when I first started in 2005, was a lot stronger than the men's side. And it's gradually turning. Obviously, with David Beckham coming over from England to the United States, that raised the profile so much. I think soccer now, with between the ages of 7 and 14, is the most played sport in the United States now. It's took over baseball and football and things like that. So it's getting there. It's going to take a lot of time, but we can understand why America isn't already there with the size of it. And obviously the infrastructure that the state's government like to put the funding into grassroots. So we wouldn't be surprised if the United States within the next 10 to 15 years was a national type of team where they were recognised all over the world. So they were like in Italy or a France or a England or a Brazil, where they're actually recognised on a national stage at a World Cup. But it needs to happen a lot quicker, especially with the size of the United States and how it's.
Yeah, it's a cultural thing too. I lived in northern Germany, and that's all they do. They're in the rain, the cold. Everybody just wants to go out and play soccer all the time.
Definitely.
Like here, people play football and baseball.
Yeah, they're the bigger sports.
Yep.
They're just out there doing it.
And the thing is, in America, with all the sports, every sport's different year round. In England, soccer is all year round. Obviously, you've got your baseball, and you have your football, and you've got your basketball in between. So everybody, especially for kids coming through high school and middle school, they play all the sports. And it's hard to obviously narrow themselves down on one sport, especially if they're an athlete and they can play all of them. And like I said, with soccer becoming an up and rising sport, especially in the middle schools and preschools, hopefully it'll improve, because with the improvement it helps our jobs as soccer coaches to recruit college players. And that's one of the reasons why we do go to Cincinnati, because they've got the infrastructure there. I know coaches that have been at Rio that have gone to Cincinnati. Kevin McCluskey, for example, he's a club director in Cincinnati now for Cincinnati United. He was a professional player, played at Rio, was one of the coaches when they won the national team, and he's a great person to go and speak to about players down there. So we've got links and things that help us recruit players from that area. And obviously from the admissions side, I can speak to the coaches whilst I'm doing the admissions role, trying to recruit players for sports and for just the general school as well. So it means that I'm getting exposure to the school, and the fact that I'm the women's soccer coach helps as well, because I speak to people that are obviously in those positions and get our name out there, really.
Is there something a person can do if they live in this area and want to get into soccer to make themselves better?
It's kind of a hit and miss thing. We recently tried to put a showcase together for the 4 county areas. We sent out letters and emails and calls to every AD within a 50-mile radius of Rio, and when we actually looked into it, there's a lot of schools, and we were trying to get people to come in for the 6th of April, and we had one person respond. You know what I mean? So we're trying to get out there and try to get people involved, and at the minute it's just not getting there, so we have to come up with new ideas to try and get people involved. I know Tony Daniels has got the youth academy going on here, which is helping. But like I said, they're just little. Is
that open to girls and boys?
Yeah, it's open to both. But the only thing is, it goes up to U9s. You know what I mean? That's the oldest that he takes his teams up to. And a lot of the schools in this area don't have just a women's program. It's unisex, both mixed in. But we do have players, like for example, we've got a player from Jackson, Peyton Miller, that comes in and practice with us. She's only a junior, but she's going to be a great player. And if we can recruit players from 20 minutes away, you know what I mean, it makes our job a lot easier to recruit. And Peyton will be a fantastic player, and hopefully we can bring her to Rio, but with where she plays for OP Eagles, which is a Columbus club team, they've won national championships. You know what I mean, she's playing at a high standard there, and playing all over the United States. I know next weekend they're in San Diego, for example, playing. So hopefully, yes, they're raising the game within the 4-county area, but obviously trying to keep them at Rio, it'll be a problem as well. But if we've got, I don't know, 12 teams doing that, and you've got 12 players from each team that can play at your North Carolinas and your Ohio States, we're still going to get some type of players from that. So, like I said, it's going to take time. And
do you play Ohio State like the boys do?
No, they would walk the floor with us. We have to we have to learn how to crawl before we can run.
Yeah.
So and with our change when we went to the Mid-South from the AMC to the Mid-South, our conference is very, very strong. For example, Lindsey Wilson lost the conference final to Cumberland and Tennessee, yet Lindsey Wilson go on and win the national championship. So our conference is very strong, and we feel that we can improve with the conference play that we play against. And every year we try to incorporate teams that are in the top 25, so my players can see that this is the level that we have to be at to even compete with these type of teams. And at times our heart plays a lot of the job for us. If we go in there with a lot of heart and play like we know we can do well. But then it's keeping that momentum and keeping everybody together, hopefully staying injury free and going from there. But the conference that we play some very, very strong teams, and it's important for us to play those strong teams, because I believe that's how you get better, playing the better teams. That's how you improve yourself.
Well, Colin, I'm looking at the clock, and we've got about 3 minutes. I'll tell you, this half hour has really flown right by. So in the 3 minutes that we have left, what would you like the listeners to know about Rio Grande? And this is your opportunity to recruit.
Yeah.
To recruit.
Advertise the university.
And if someone's listening, how do they get a hold of you?
Well, my information is online at rio.edu. You can click on the athletics page and go to staff, and my information there, Peter's information's on there, email, cell number, all of it's on there. So don't send me any text messages that you don't want me to read. But by all means, email, call, and then from a recruiting standpoint, Rio's Rio. It's very unique in the fact of how much you pay for school, and nowadays with obviously the recession, people still in that situation, schooling's very, very cheap here. And you're not just paying for cheap school, you're paying for a good education as well. I got my degree here and got my master's degree here, and I know people that have gone on to work outside of Rio. I know I stayed and did I've got my job here now, but I know people that have left and been very, very successful. For example, Stuart Croft, that was in yours, that was in your MBA program. He's working for a top company now in North Carolina that send him to England, to Germany to do his job. So he's kind of landed on his feet there. So cheap school doesn't necessarily mean cheap education.
No, you get out of it what you
put into it. Exactly. Like I mentioned earlier, with a 2.7 GPA coming out of my undergrad, finished with a 4.0. It's how much you want to put into it, and I wanted to put.
And you can get education practically anywhere, probably.
Yep.
Because, like I said, it's whatever you put into it. It's one of those strange things that you pay, but yeah, you pay for a service, but you're doing the work.
Definitely.
And Rio's unique. You know, there's a lot of places you go, you're just a number. And some people like that. Some people they need to go away and they need to become a number.
Yeah.
But that's not for everybody. And at Rio Grande, you're not a number.
Nope.
You've got a student ID number, but
you're a name, you're
most
a face.
of the faculty know who you are and know where you're at and know how to get a hold of you.
That's actually one of the main recruiting tools you can use when you're trying to get players come in. A lot of them like the fact that it's a small school and small class sizes.
Parents,
we know that you're absent from class when you're absent.
Exactly, and parents lap that up if they know that they're going to be in a class size between 10 and 15 students when they hit their main degree. You know what I mean? They get a lot of one-to-one time with the lecturers. You guys both as lecturers here, you know what that's like. You get to know the names, what the family's like, and normally, hopefully, at the end of it, when they're graduating, you're a reference for them. And as a recruiter, that's what I tell my students. I don't lie to them and say that you're just going to turn up, do your job, and leave. It's what you put into it is what you're going to get out of it, like you mentioned. And when parents come, that's what they want to hear. And I'm not lying to them when we say that. And I think that's what a lot of parents want the kids to do. And hopefully, it's the kids buying into that idea and hopefully coming here and doing that.
Okay.
Do you want to wrap it up?
Well, I just want to wrap up. We want to thank Callum for coming in today and giving us his insight into the university and what it is to be a women's head soccer coach. And we'd like to thank our listeners for tuning in today. I'm Peter.
I'm Jason.
I'm Mike.
And I'm Callum.
Yep. Thanks for watching.
Thank you for listening.